My abuse started very young, and it started at the church when I was riding the bus. The estimated age I estimated was around 5, but yeah, it happened at the church. Well, not at the church, but on the bus that carried us to church. No, it happened on the transportation ride before. See, the First Baptist, when they used to come and pick the kids up, they used to send a group of young, like, ministers out door to door, and they'd knock on the door and let you know the bus is coming. And some of the children would get picked up sooner than others because they would be ready to go, and I was one of them. And I would stay on the bus with the bus driver, which at the time, when I was being molested, was the bus driver, but then later ended up being the deacon of the church. Mm-hmm. It was the inappropriate touching, and it was, I didn't know it was wrong, I was so young, I just thought it was love. And so I just figured, all the little extra things that, I would get, and because I was always first on the bus and always revved up to go, I'm like, yeah, we're going, and I'm going to get the extra goldfish today, and but I didn't know that maybe some of that stuff was tied to him and his favor, but because he was abusing me. I hadn't seen him in many years until the day we had a deposition for trial. And that's when I was able to have seen him. I hadn't seen him since probably I was 8 or 9, but over the course of years, every blue moon in passing, and even as I became a young teenager, I would see him in passing, and he would just kind of be standoffish, look away, but it was okay because I knew. Probably about when I was around 11, is when I started realizing, something was wrong. When I truly realized that I needed to talk about it, I was like 18. And me and my girlfriend, who was also a victim, but she was being molested in her own home by one of her parents, she was telling me, and I was, trying to console her that, it's okay, you're not the only one, it's, okay, because the way her story came out was so abrupt, and a friend of ours told her secret in school, being angry and trying to make her feel, some type of way, but instead of her, she did feel some type of way, and social services came in, and, like they do in a lot of stories with people, they separate for a minute, but then they put them back in there around their abusers, and so they call it, I guess, working through the situation, but I think it's sad because there's no true safety for a child, because even though somebody goes and get help doesn't mean that they're safe, nor does it mean that that child feels safe. I couldn't say how many times it happened because it was, a lot of times, but I couldn't say that it was so much that it was, like I said, I didn't even know it was wrong. It was just, I thought this was some kind of special love, that he loves me more than you guys, and and I had no idea that, this touching was inappropriate until, when you get older and you see other people getting caught kissing and getting caught doing things, and then you start realizing, hey, something ain't right. That happened to me when I was younger, and this was a big person, and it kind of, that's when you start trying to figure it, and then you become ashamed. And then if you were active like I was, who had other issues, and because I was black and white and my family already had division, it also made me think that there was something wrong with me. I already thought something was wrong with me because I was black and white, The world wasn't nice in the 70s about that issue. So on top of that, and then this, I really, as a young child, felt really obligated to be quiet and know that whatever I had done, it was probably my fault that it happened. And it took me many years of a lot of things I went through, and then establishing a relationship with God to truly be able to get past this and understand. Even as a child, I knew God, And though it happened to me at that church, and there was things that happened, there were a lot of beautiful people at that church. And this was just one bad man in that church. And I felt some type of way with my family. And they didn't even know. I don't even think they know to this day that I felt some type of way. I felt like, like they should have saved me. I mean, but how can anyone save you if they don't know? And then when some found out, I felt like they should have reacted in a better way. But then I have to realize that, because I believe in God, I also know that Satan is real. And I had to realize that just like I was under attack, they are too. And that's what has allowed me to forgive them for and the instance of I felt like not being there for me, or him for doing what he done, or just in it all, just with everyday life examples, but this issue is so hush hush that I think it's really important that children are taught, because no child should have to live with a secret and feel bad or feel like they're inadequate at such a young age because of this, and then feel nasty, and then feel like, at the same time, I can remember the Sunday school teacher teaching us young to save ourselves for our husbands. And when you're a child, you don't know what that means, and you don't know, anything about that. But when you get older and you start lining up your life, and you're like, man, I should have listened, but you didn't know what you were being taught. And so I think so many issues need to have a direct, children are smart. They're very smart. And if you teach them right, they'll learn right. And this is such a sensitive issue. No one wants to talk about it because, it's nothing no one wants to really hear. It's awful, But at the same token, it's happening so much that it needs to be addressed. I was such a bad little girl. I think probably about 11 or 12, I started running away from home. I started, hanging out with kids that were older than me because I was much bigger, and I just started doing all kinds of wrong. And like I say, because I already had black and white issues, it was something I felt like go to my mother about, because there was the issue of black and white, and then there was the issue of I was so bad, no one's gonna believe me, I was in college at Calumet College of St. Joseph's, and we had a teacher there, and he used to talk about cases that were coming up for trial and things that were going on. And he was talking to me about, well, it wasn't just me, it was the whole class, about a case and the particulars, and they sounded so familiar. And for years I had asked God for a sign to tell, how should I tell? Will they believe me, And we got in class, and I was maybe 22, and he starts talking about this man in this case, and it sounded so familiar. And I was like, and then we're talking about how he might go free because there was no witnesses to this man, and I'm like, man, that's awful. And I'm hearing the story. And after class, I walk up to the teacher, because they never tell us the names of the people that they're talking about. They just address the case, but not the people. So after the class, I was like, let me ask him, maybe this is my sign. So I walked up to the teacher, and I says, can I ask you a question? And I just said, well, I just wanted to know, was that man's name Ballinger? And he says, were you going to ask me the same thing to the other girl? And she says, no, I want to know about the syllabus. And he says, no, we're going to have to talk later. I need to talk to her right now. So he says to me, hey, how did you know that? And then I got nervous a little bit. And he was like, wait a minute, Ari, if you're nervous, maybe I can let you talk to someone else. But I'm just curious to how did you know, And I'm like, no, I'm fine. He was, really nice about it. Like, how did you know? And I was like, well, it seems similar, to my thing. And so, he was like, well, do you feel comfortable talking to me? And I was like, sure, because I felt like I was an adult woman now.
Yeah. You had a kid at this point, right?
Yeah, that was 3. And I think the young girl that was going through this at the time was around that age. So then I felt guilty, because I felt like all these years I've held this in. Now there's a child who's the same age as mine going through this if I would have said something, if I would have did something, you know. I began to take on more guilt and more, you know, shame and more, and it was like I got through it though, you know. He says, "Hey, would you be willing to testify?" And at this point, this was my, what do you want to say, not my get back, but my chance to, you know, make the wrong right, you know. And though I hadn't done nothing wrong, I took on, you know, feeling wrong for this child, you know, and for her parents. And so I was like, you know, I got to do what's right here. And so I went to the Crown Point, and I gave my deposition. Upon getting there, I had no idea that he was going to be there. They didn't tell me accusers have the right to face their, the accused have the right to face their accuser. So I was like, okay, and so I was a little nervous, but I got through it, and I did the trial. I noticed through articles that after I came forward, there were many others. And so I don't know if I started something then by coming forward, or if someone else had came forward. I don't know. I just know that it was many of us after this that came forward, and I felt like finally there's going to be some justice, and there was. I felt good that he was finally going to pay for some of his wrongs, you know. I also felt bad. I felt bad for him as well, but it wasn't right away. It was many years later, because as you start watching that, a lot of times victims are people who later become perpetrators. And especially in a lot of young men and boys, you know, and not that women don't, I mean, there are. But then I started feeling bad for him in the instance that, you know, maybe he had been through something so tragic himself that made him this way. Or, you know, maybe there was, you know, something. I had compassion, and I know that compassion I had, it came from God, the same compassion that he has on us when we do wrong. And, you know, it took me a long time to forgive him. I learned later how to forgive, and I've taken therapies and different things, and it didn't take away the memories. But when I got my relationship with God, thank God for it, it changed. It was so important to me to have this relationship with Christ Jesus, because when I had this relationship, it changed a lot about me. I had a new conviction in my heart for forgiveness, and not just for him, but I want to be forgiven, so I have to, you know, be forgiving. And so it's a daily battle, and if I would have came forward sooner, there may have been less victims. So if I can just help save one, it's worth it.